these are people who went to business school, and to them, music is nothing but like a widget to be sold.
So you think the Democratic Party cares about Black people? Believe it or not, Rex, I think that tweet is part of the problem. Do you feel like we could have addressed this homeless issue much sooner? You have to speak a word, make it a good one.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome back to The Word. I'm Jackie Rae. I'm excited for my next guest. We have a lot of talent that hails from Long Beach, and now this is no different. And this is going to be unique talent. We've talked to a few singers before. I think we've had a couple of singers on the show, but we've never had a DJ. So this is our first DJ. I'm super excited about that. So I'd love to introduce you to DJ Clifton Weaver, aka DJ Soft Touch. Right? So let's start there. How did the name DJ Soft Touch come about?
Well, it started out as a joke. Long time ago, me and a friend of mine had, it's actually my first residency that I had was at the Beauty Bar in Hollywood. And it was on a Sunday night, and it was pretty slow. It was pretty dreary night. And so me and a good friend of mine that were doing this night, we were thinking, oh, maybe we need to have like DJ names to make us sound, bigger than we were. And so yeah, he actually was the one that gave me the name. There's a funk group from Oakland, I believe, called Soft Touch, and they had a song called Plenty of Action, and I used to play the 45 all the time. And so he called me DJ Soft Touch, and he gave himself the name DJ Don Louis Vuitton. Yeah. It didn't help the night, but yeah, the name Soft Touch kind of stuck. When people would, when I started doing other nights and people would ask what my DJ name was, I'm like, I guess it's DJ Soft Touch.
I love that.
So yeah, it stuck.
So you grew up in Long Beach.
Yeah, grew up in Long Beach from 82 to 98.
Okay, so you went to school here too.
Actually, no, I went to school out near Whittier. I went to a private school out in Whittier. But yeah, I grew up out here. My dad worked for, at the time it was called McDonnell Douglas, and it's Boeing now.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad worked for Boeing, and yeah, lived in North Long Beach, down near Artesia.
So as a DJ, we talk about the musical influence of Long Beach all the time. As a DJ, did Long Beach influence, because you were young then, like, did it influence your musical life at all?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, probably as a DJ, one of the biggest influences on me, and this was actually after I had, gone to college, moved away from Long Beach, but then started hanging out in Long Beach again.
Mm-hmm.
There's a club out here called the Goodfoot, and yeah, that was one of the first clubs that I really kind of fell in love with, and like the whole sound of it. Because at the time I was kind of involved in kind of like this retro '60s, COD mod scene, and so already, with it being a retro kind of '60s scene, people were listening to a lot of soul and stuff, but kind of people had very kind of arbitrary hard cutoff dates where it's like, oh, I'll only listen to any records that came out up until 68 or something like that. And when I would go to the Goodfoot, they would play, of course they play lots of 60s soul stuff, but then they were playing stuff from like, the 70s all the way up until like, the early 80s. And yeah, it was eye-opening and kind of changed my mind about a lot of like later period records. And yeah, it's just a great crowd, really fun, and it kind of had kind of like almost like a family feel that I feel like, kind of like the best kind of clubs have, where people know each other and people are actually there for the music and for, for lack of a better word, for the culture that the club kind of entails.
So let's go backwards a little bit, because I was doing some research on you, and it was your parents who gave you your first record, right?
Yes.
And why did they give that to you?
So yeah, the first record I ever owned was the Ohio Players' Fire. And I think I was probably 2 or 3 years old, and I would beg my parents to play their copy all the time, like nonstop. Play it, I'd have them play the song, then play it again and play it again. And I think, at a certain point they got tired, and they're like, okay, they bought me my own copy of the Ohio Players' Greatest Hits, and they bought me my own little kind of portable turntable, so I could, play it for myself.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that
kind of
3 years old.
3 years old. That kind of started me off. Yeah, Ohio Players was the first record. Then the second record I owned was Michael Jackson's Off the Wall.
Ooh, that's a good album.
And then a series of Disney records up until
right.
up until Thriller came out. And then
So your musical journey and your love and passion for music started very, very early. So when you kind
Mm,
of go back, and this is a broader question, but when
mhm,
you kind of look at where music was then versus where it is now, you're a musician as well as a
yeah.
DJ. What is your thought process of what music is right now?
Um, you know, being older, I always kind of, I mean, I don't want to fall into like that kind of stereotypical trap of, or not trap, but like that kind of stereotypical thing that old people do, where like they always kind of like criticize whatever young people are listening to.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a world of difference. The stuff I grew up with, were most of it was played by actual musicians,
Mhm.
and because of that, when you play an instrument, it could be 30 guitars playing all the same notes at the same time, but it's all going to sound different because there are individuals behind it. Whereas so much of music today is, I feel, kind of like you know produced using like samplers
Right.
or other electronic means. So that in and of itself kind of takes away a lot of individuality from it. Um, and I think also the things that you hear in charts now,
Mhm.
it's so kind of corporate driven, and I feel like one's kind of they're going on a tangent now. There was a great book I read a long time ago called The Mansion on the Hill,
Mhm.
and the subtitle of it was How the Music Business Became the Music Industry.
Right.
And in the book, they detail it kind of shows the shift where when rock first starts, and it's all music people who run labels. You
Mhm.
have former musicians starting labels, former musicians working as A&R, musicians working as producers. Everyone that was involved knew music on a certain level. And then kind of by like the 70s and 80s, when music becomes big business, you have people who aren't necessarily, in love with music now running labels. And
Mm.
these are people who went to business school, and to them music is nothing but like a widget to be sold.
Right.
And in that sense, I feel like that's kind of stripped a lot of individuality and a lot of creativity out of music now, because labels and everyone's just kind of concerned with like what's going to make the most amount of money in the fastest, in the quickest amount of time.
Mhm.
Whereas, in the book I talk in the book that I'm talking about, they tell stories about like Bob Dylan, Neil Young, and Bruce Springsteen, and specifically those three, because those three, their careers took a really really long time to take off.
Right.
But the A&R people at the labels believed in their talent, believed they had something unique to offer, and so they kept them on the label until audiences kind of caught up with them.
Mhm.
Whereas now, like I said, you have business people who view music as a widget to be sold in as quick as manner as possible. So all of that is to say that in the aftermath of business people and more of a more corporate kind of music environment, I think music, there's a lot less individuality in it. Maybe a little less creative than it was in previous
Absolutely.
decades, and I don't think that's necessarily down to like a generational thing, because there's a lot of great independent underground music that's still being made. A lot of amazing young groups out there, but they aren't necessarily going to get like the exposure that they might have gotten 40, 50 years ago,
Right.
because it's not something that's going to be easily digestible or something that's going to shoot up to the top of the charts within a matter of days. And
Mhm.
you know,
Right. So you got your first record at 3.
yeah.
When did the DJ bug hit?
Uh, well, it never really. It wasn't like a thing that hit. It was like
Okay.
it's something I kind of fell into.
Mm.
So, like like I was saying, I am a musician as well, and
What do you
well,
what do you play? Do you play a multitude of things
yeah,
or
I play multiple instruments. So I've play bass,
okay.
play guitar, play keys, play a little bit of percussion, little bit
Ooh.
of keys too, precious little. But
Okay.
yeah, currently I'm in 3 or 4 bands right now,
Nice.
and playing different things. And then when I was starting to DJ, I was a bassist in a band, and we had a residency actually at Que Sera out here in Long Beach,
Mhm.
and the main promoter for that night, he either would just put on one side of a record or wouldn't have anything going until he thought there was enough people in the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And my band having a residency there, I was, that first night, I'm watching people walk in and walk out because they look in the DJ booth, they don't see anyone there, they just hear a side of a record playing, and they don't think there's anything going on. And I want there, to be people there to see my band.
Right.
So I asked, I'm like, hey, next week, would you mind if I just brought some records so that I could, so I'll that way when people walk in, they see someone in the DJ booth, they hear some, they hear like the songs changing, and the promoter's like, yeah, sure, it's fine. So I brought records, and then that what was supposed to be a 1 month residency turned into a longer residency for the band, which meant I was stayed on longer as a DJ. Then I became a DJ, part of the night, part of the promotional team of the night. And then as my band played more and more in LA, a lot of different venues and different events in LA, they would always ask, oh, if there's a band member that wants to bring records, they can guest DJ for the night. Then that always ended up being me because now I had the experience of DJing. So it always ended up being me that brought records. And then when the band broke up, people kept asking me to DJ. And yeah, so now here we are.
So how did your DJ style evolve from when you just did it to make sure people would walk in to now you're the person that's the DJ for the night?
Well, yeah, I mean, part of it is just, I think, you just learn more about music in general. So your tastes change and evolve. I think, a big influence for me was like when kind of like disco and stuff kind of clicked for me. So I started listening to disco, and I started buying kind of, reading about like, early disco in New York, like the loft parties from David Mancuso and things like that. And I started reading about how they had like this kind of philosophy of like keeping the music going and, making sure there's no dead air. So, then I started learning how to really kind of like mix records so there's no dead air. Then, from there started learning, and then, starting to go out to other types of nights, like going to hip hop nights, going to, house music events, stuff like that, and learning about like, beat matching and blending and like, trying to incorporate as much of that as possible into my own style. And, as I'm DJing and learning all those different skills, I know as people are responding to it, more and more on the dance floor, and that, it keeps the party going.
Yeah. when I was younger, people would say DJ, and I would always think of the mixing and scratching and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've always kind of wanted to delve into that as well. Of course, so many of the DJs I know come from more of a hip hop background. So yeah,
Right.
that's like in their wheelhouse, like scratching, and I feel like that's something I really need to kind of like learn more of. But like at the same time, I didn't come at this from a hip hop background.
Right.
I started out listening to 60s records and and like going to like kind of retro 60s Northern Soul nights where DJs would put on a record from the start to the finish. Sometimes people would talk in between the records on the mic. And so going from that and then seeing how other people DJ'd, and learning that, oh, okay, I would actually prefer, just song after song after song with as few interruptions as possible, just to keep the energy on the dance floor. But because of all that, I didn't, delve into scratching because I wasn't trying to, emulate any kind of like hip hop DJs.
Yeah.
I
You're
was,
trying to keep the party going.
yeah, exactly.
So how does your musicianship and knowing how to play multiple instruments, how did that help you as a DJ?
Well, I mean, it definitely helps like with kind of beat matching and blending, just
Okay.
because, being able to like, count the bars and measures of a song, hearing where like the kick and snare are placed when you're trying to like line up two different songs, to, kind of even simple things like being able to hear the different keys of the songs, understanding the bass lines and, because sometimes when you're trying to blend two different songs, they might have similar bass lines, which might make it easier for the two songs to blend. So yeah, in that respect, definitely musicianship, and having a musical background, is definitely a big plus.
So how do you do that? I know from the outside looking in, we'll always see the DJs with the headphones and like one's up to their
Yeah.
ear. How does that actually work where you're blending the record so we can barely tell when we're on the dance floor?
Well, yeah. So when you hear them see them doing this, so
Yeah.
they're listening to the record that they're queuing up,
And then listening to the other one.
and then listening to what's in the house system
Gotcha. Okay.
with the the ear that doesn't have the headphone on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, with this ear, with listening to this, they're trying to get the drums to line up in sync with what's happening out there in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're trying to get the kick and the snare to line up. Sometimes songs might be just the tempos might be slightly different, so you'll see them moving like the pitch up and down on the turntables to
Mm-hmm.
kind of maybe slow one song down, speed another song up, just so like the kick and the snare will line up. And then once you get the kick and the snare lined up, then you got to figure out the right part, the right point to bring one song in and pull the other song
Mm-hmm.
out, and try to do it gradually so it's not a jarring change for anyone on the dance floor.
So it's a whole process.
Yeah, it's a process, and a lot of trial and error, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
errors, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
errors. But yeah, you stick with it. You should get you get better at anything you stick with. So
Yeah. What about how has technology really played a role in how DJing has changed?
oh, absolutely. I still prefer using vinyl.
Yeah.
But I am very much familiar with Serato. I've used controllers before, and yeah, something like Serato, when it initially came in, it was like, oh wow, you can have so much more music with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then those kind of DJ programs started things like where, oh, it'll automatically sync things for you. So now it's easier to beat, match, and blend. So
Right.
so now you have a whole generation of DJs who've never actually learned to listen to the songs that beat, match, and blend because, oh, the sync button will do it for you. Technically, the sync
Mm.
button will do it for you, and technically the sync button should make things in key and everything like that. But a lot of times it doesn't. I can hear and tell when someone's using a sync button versus when they're actually doing it, because those programs they're using. The program is analyzing the waveforms of the songs, and sometimes the waveforms, the way the program analyzes it, it'll hear like maybe a loud bass or a
Mm-hmm.
loud guitar part, and it'll read it as a kick or a snare. So a lot of times it's not reading it accurately. So if you try to rely too much on the computer to do your beat matching and blending for you, it'll using something like an auto sync or something like that, it'll actually sound terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you said you prefer vinyl. That means
Yeah.
you're carrying crates of records with you, and
Yeah.
that's how many crates?
Well, it depends on the night. Sometimes,
Okay.
if I'm just like a guest DJ and I'm just doing an hour, I can get away with bringing like a little small bag of records. Sometimes, I'll do like, a 4-hour night on my own. And yeah, you're bringing like, maybe two 12-inch bags and, one larger 45 box. And even then, not all of that is getting played, but I do
Right.
like to have options.
Mm-hmm.
You never know like what the crowd's going to feel, how, how you might feel. You might pick out a particular set, but then you start playing and you feel like, oh, I'd rather go this direction. So it's good to have options. But yeah, it's a lot to carry sometimes.
Yeah, it seems like I'm a diehard Prince fan, so I have everything he's made, but it's all digital. So I'm slowly like getting it on vinyl. And my mom asked me, she's like, "Can you hear to me, it does sound different. I can't explain the difference. I feel like it might be some sort of nostalgia thing where you actually have to pick up that needle and put it on the record. But do you feel like there's an actual different sound between vinyl and what we get digitally?"
Yes, but it's kind of complicated. No, I mean, not complicated, but like involved. So a lot of older music, of course, was recorded to tape.
Right.
And then when it's mastered for vinyl. So it depends where along the process is it digital.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that are sold on vinyl now were recorded digitally, mastered digitally, and then pressed on vinyl. And because of that, those things actually will sound better digital.
Gotcha.
Because it was recorded digitally and it was mastered digitally. So it was actually digital the entire process. And sometimes, when you have something that was created digitally along the entire process, when you put it to vinyl, the vinyl will then actually sound worse because now you're seeing where the gaps are. So, an analog signal is like, one kind of long continuous curve. And then a digital signal is sampling bits and pieces of the analog. So it's like little blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take something that was recorded digitally and you put it onto an analog source like vinyl, now you'll be able to see where like the blocks are missing, where the sample.
Oh.
So it's, and it's, and to be fair, the digital recording process now is so kind of like sophisticated, it's barely perceptible. But still, if something's recorded and mastered digitally, the best way to hear it is digital.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that was recorded analog and mastered for analog, the best way to hear is analog. But some things were recorded analog and then they were mastered digitally, and then people take the digital masters and put them back onto vinyl. The best way to hear that would be vinyl. So if you're looking for the ideal kind of like sound source for an analog record, you'd have to get like a first pressing from like the 60s, 70s, or 80s or whatever, when it was recorded to tape, mastered for vinyl, and then pressed on the vinyl.
Yeah, so that means like even the stuff that I get that Prince made like in the late 70s, that's probably been digitally remastered and then repressed
on
onto
the vinyl.
vinyl.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes perfect sense. See, we're learning something over here. So, from the time that you first started DJing, you've played everywhere. You've played at the Standard,
Yeah.
in Hollywood. You also opened for Janelle Monáe.
Well, that was in a band. I was in a band
Okay.
called Love Grenades, and we opened up for Janelle Monáe on I believe it was her first tour, because her first record hadn't come out yet. It was just about to come out. So yeah, it was kind of like she was doing club dates here in LA, and then I think New York and a couple other places where like they were kind of like introducing her. And yeah, we opened up for Janelle Monáe at, I believe it was the Viper Room.
Nice. And how did that come about?
So Love Grenades, I was just the bassist in Love Grenades. The main
Don't say just the bassist. That drives the whole sound.
Well, I don't know. I mean, but they weren't my song. I didn't write the songs,
Right.
But I was playing bass in the group, and I believe we had a PR person who was able to set that up for us.
Mm-hmm.
They thought our sound would work well with opening up for her, because
I
she was
could
doing
definitely
something
see that.
unique.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
And actually Prince was in the audience that night.
Just made my day.
Yeah.
I saw Prince out here. He surprised Sheila E. at Harvell's,
Oh wow.
and that made my existence.
Yeah, I've never seen Prince play live.
I saw him 3 nights in a row at the Forum. When he was
Oh yeah,
playing
we
at the
did.
Forum.
Yeah, I remember when he did that. I
Yeah.
think those tickets were only like $25
Man,
each.
yeah, so I was just like, give them to me, give them to me, give them to me. It was such a great, and I actually thought I was going to see the same show all 3 nights. It was a different show every night. And I was like, dang, I should have just, because I went the last 3 nights. I was like, I should have been going the whole time. But yeah, Prince detour there. But so with you being a DJ, you've been a DJ for quite some time.
Yeah, 23 years now.
That's amazing. And you have no signs of slowing down.
Yeah, so far, I'm still, knock on wood, I'm still fortunate that I'm DJing 4 to 6 nights a week, and still playing like in 3 or 4 bands as well. So yeah, fortunate that I'm still involved and being able to still do it.
Yeah, and that's a testament. So what do you think has given you this longevity?
I just love music. And
Yeah.
I think it's it's one of those things where if you really love it, it's you'll just be involved in it. It's I think it's because you have to love it, and if you really love it, you'll be in it for the right reasons.
Right.
A lot of times, I think people want quick fame or quick success, or anything like that, and that's not going to last very long. And if that's your goal, you're not going to last long in it, because there's so many frustrations and a lot of ups and downs in this. And yeah, if you're not in it because you actually love it, you'll give up.
Yeah.
I had a good friend of mine a long time ago, and he was talking about this in the context of being being in bands and being a musician, but I think it applies to DJing as well. He said you gotta, if you want to, be successful or make it or whatever, so you have to love everything about it, even like the bad shows. You have to love playing the bad shows. And at the time, I didn't really get it, but now I understand it. It's like you do this because you love it, and sometimes it's not going to be. And the situation's not always going to be ideal. You're not always going to play your best, or sometimes you play like what you think is an amazing set, and the crowds don't connect with it. But you love the music, and you love the whole process of it, and that keeps you coming back.
And is this your sole career? Is this your only source
Yeah.
of income? That's amazing.
Yeah, I just knock on wood. Like I said, I've been very fortunate that I've been able to just DJ, for DJ and play music for a living. And yeah.
When you first started doing it, did your family kind of go, you know what, this is just a hobby, this isn't a career, or were they always supportive?
they were always supportive. I mean, they did say, "Oh, you should have a backup plan."
Right.
And I have had, I have done other jobs,
Mm-hmm.
throughout the course of being in a band and even DJing. I've had like 9 to 5s here and there. I think the last 9 to 5 I had though was like well over 10 years ago.
Well, congratulations to you.
But I mean, and again, when I quit that job, I didn't know how long I was not going to have a 9 to 5. I
Gotcha.
just quit that job because at the time I was in, I was working for a clothing label in downtown LA. So I was working in fashion for like 3 years, and that's another very stressful, hectic job. And at
Mm,
the same time, I was playing in 2 bands, and I was DJing 3 to 4 nights a week at the time, and it was just like all a bit much. And I was like, well, I'm kind of making, off of music, I'm making what I'm making at the clothing label. And I'm like, well, I'll just quit and see how long I can go for.
right.
And yeah.
And that probably freed you up to do more music stuff, right?
Yeah, freed up more,
Mm-hmm.
to do more music stuff, freed up more, definitely have more time to like sleep and take care of myself.
Which is
But,
important.
yeah. Yeah, I just thought, well, let me see how long I can go, and then if when it's time to get another job, I'll get another job.
Mm-hmm.
And knock on wood, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. So of all the venues you've played, the artists you've opened for, what's the one that really stands out in your mind?
So two places stand out for me. So for a long time, I was part of a weekly night called Funky Soul at the Echo. And when I was a part of that night, and during those years when the Echo was still an independent venue, yeah, that stood out to me. That was great. For the most part, I looked forward to that night every Saturday. That was just because the crowds were so open musically. Because we were playing very rare records, and
Yeah.
we would go off on tangents at time, playing like it was a night that was built around kind of like the whole James Brown funk sound,
Ooh,
but within
nice.
that, you know we were taking it, oh, there's like all this, kind of like psych records from, maybe like, Japan or something, but these
Oh,
psych records also had like, obviously James Brown influenced rhythms, and, playing African records, and, records from all over the world, Turkish records, whatever. And the crowds would follow us and they dance. And yeah, that to me was always kind of like an amazing thing. And then, after I left that club, I started my own night. I have a monthly event at Zebulon called the Soul Shakedown Party, and that's the other venue that's uh, and it ties it, ties those early Echo years for me, because Zebulon, it's still an independent venue, and it's got like a really great musically open-minded crowd that comes out. And yeah, and I get to play all sorts of records from the 60s to the 80s, super rare records from all over the world, and people will still respond to them,
yeah.
not necessarily bound by hits or trying to water down what I'm into just to appeal to a crowd.
So this sounds like an amazing night, a very interesting night, a night
Yeah.
that those club goers out there might not be used to. So where can they come and experience you DJing?
So, well, I'm all over. So I have every Monday night. So another big influence I hadn't had a chance to talk about was a night called Cafe Blue, which was like a Britpop indie rock mod night
Oh,
that I went to from like the mid '90s to I think it ended like in 2000. So I play a lot of that stuff still, and that was a big influence on me. And I do a Monday night in downtown Fullerton at Mickey's Pub, where I play a lot of Britpop, indie rock, post punk kind of sounds. Um, then the first Fridays at the Monty in Westlake, just outside of downtown LA. I have a night called Stepping Out, where I play a lot of 60s soul, some garage rock. Then once a month, I have my Soul Shakedown party. It's called the Soul Shakedown Party at Zebulon, which is in Atwater, this little area between Silver Lake and just outside of Echo Park area.
so as a DJ and doing all this driving, what do you listen to in the car?
You know, what I listen to a lot of times is very, very different from what I play.
Okay.
I like I like a lot of classical music.
Huh.
I like a lot of folk. Things like Nick Drake, Pentangle, um, So yeah, I listen to a lot of folk, listen to classical, I listen to a lot of reggae.
Now the
Um,
reggae I could see. The other two I didn't see coming.
yeah. Oh, I love folk music. Just when I was a kid and starting to play guitar, one of the big influences on me was like Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin,
Okay.
and I loved kind of like his finger picking style and a lot of the folk influence stuff he liked. So I started buying records by guys like Bert Jansch and John Renbourn, who were both in Pentangle, and anything that sounded like that, I loved.
Yeah, I can definitely see your passion. So your passion for music, it's resonating. I can literally feel it from you. So what haven't we touched on it, which is something that you're still very passionate about to this day?
When I first started going out and playing in my bands and just beginning to DJ, I was very much involved in kind of like this kind of '60s kind of mod influence scene. Where people were trying to dress up and listen to stuff that kids in the '60s in the UK listened to. People with scooters and stuff like that, and that's still a big influence on me. And I still love all that stuff, and I'm very much in touch with a lot of people who you know, were involved in that in, same time period I came up, some people who were involved in it before then and after. And so yeah, I like a lot of the clothes that are influenced by that kind of time period. And so yeah, clothes are still a big passion of mine. I
Mhm.
buy a lot of clothes, buy a lot of vintage and stuff like that. I love, old movies. And music. To me, it all kind of goes hand in hand.
Right.
Clothes and music and art and all of it. It's just it's all a form of like kind of self expression and
Mhm. Yeah, I'm
it's-
not sure if you're watching this, you can see, but I can tell that your eye for fashion because your socks match your shirt and they're
oh
stylish and fly. So I
oh thanks.
definitely can tell that you got an eye for
Oh
fashion.
yeah, this is actually a great label. I'm a big fan of right now called Anglozine.
Okay.
Yeah. It's funny because like I've ordered a bunch of stuff from them, and then from ordering and following them online, I've actually kind of become very friendly with the designer from
Oh,
from
that's
this label. So
good.
yeah, Anglozine's a great label. A
That's
lot of
good.
my stuff from
So
them.
are all your upcoming dates listed on your website?
Uh, Not yet, but I
Okay.
try to keep like the regular residencies up there, and then
Okay.
I will be updating my website soon.
Okay. And your
Yeah,
website is?
CliftonWeaver.com.
Easy,
Yeah,
cliftonweaver.com.
yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having
This
me.
has been great.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see. I'm going to go to cliftonweaver.com and I'm going to come to one of your residencies to check you out in person.
Oh, thank
I
you.
cannot wait. So you guys will be seeing a reel or some sort of video about that on my social media, which you should be following me on Instagram at Jackie Rae TV. But I'm excited for you, especially your longevity in the music business,
Oh, thank you.
your passion for it. It's such an inspiration. I think young people need to see that you can definitely be passionate. And I think the key to great music is learning from things that are old as well
Yeah.
as new. So I'm glad you really instilled that with us today. This has been fantastic. I can't wait to come see you and help be a part of your journey. And thank you again for joining us
Oh,
on
thank you.
this episode of The Word. And you guys remember, if you have to speak a word, make it a good one. And we'll see you next time.